I'm gonna add it to my flask. Oh, there you go, it's coming.
What do you want to do after high school? This question stresses out every single teenager because the truth is, we can't make up our minds about what we're gonna eat for breakfast, let alone a whole career.
But with applications around the corner, we need to do something about it. Join us every Thursday at 1, where we interview professionals in a variety of careers, so that one day we can answer this stressful question with confidence in our choices and ourselves. This is Career Hunt. Hey guys, as you read in the title, today we're going to be talking about teachers. Since a lot of us know what teachers do, I'm not going to talk a lot in the introduction. I'm just going to give you 2 pieces of information. The first one is how many years of studying you need. So to become a teacher, you need about 4 to 6 years. You have to take a bachelor's degree in education, or you can take a bachelor's degree with an additional education certification. And for the average salary, teachers take about $42,000 per year. For entry-level teachers, they take $30,000, and it can go as high as $70,000 per year. So yeah, that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview.
My name is Manuel Lama. I'm a science teacher at Sanders Secondary School in London, Ontario. I come from a country called Ecuador in South America. I finished my high school there. Back home we actually specialize, so I specialize in chemistry and biology. When I came to Canada, I went to McMaster University. I got a major in biochemistry. And then I did my teacher's college in Trent University, where I spent 1 year doing teacher's college. I've been teaching for 14 years.
Okay, so why did you choose chemistry and biology?
Well, I think it's like we mostly do. Most of my family members were mostly in science. They were doctors. I had 2 uncles that were doctors. And my mother was in education, and she was doing science as well. So I got a good taste of science since I was very little, having a little bit of an inquiry mind and always curious about things. Therefore, I always liked science, and when I went to high school, I was good at it as well. So it kind of came together between passion for doing it and the skill to do it, because I believe that's when you can choose actually that perfectly suits you, when you have that beautiful marriage between you have the skills to do it and you have the passion to do it.
Okay. And what motivated you to become a teacher? Why didn't you become a doctor? Because you studied biology and chemistry.
Yeah, well, I did work in a lab during my 4 years of undergrad at MAC. I like research as well. In reality, my 3 choices was either going to med school, do research, or become a teacher. The idea of going to med school went away from my ideas very quickly for many reasons. One, it was too long. And in my situation at the time, I didn't want to stay in school for that long. I wanted to be able to get to a career and be able to work and move forward with my life. I really like research because, like I said, I like science. But I found that the research hours were really excessive and the stress was high, because a lot of the research depends on your success. So if for some reason your experiment doesn't work, it's very hard to get grants, and it becomes hard to continue with your experiments. Which is funny, because then I was left with teaching, which suits me perfectly well. I'm very extrovert. I like to be part of the show. I like to talk a lot. I think most of my style kind of depends on humor, which I rely a lot. So it really suits me. The only thing that I was wrong with is the hours, because I probably work more hours than a scientist in doing research.
What do you find most frustrating about your job?
I think the time, especially now. Normally we had a lot of constraints where there's very few times where you can work one-on-one with kids. Before COVID, obviously, we had bigger numbers, so our classrooms especially when you talk about the senior courses, grade 11 or grade 12 chemistry, they tend to be always packed, 28, 29, 30 kids. So there's very few times that you have a one-on-one situation. So it's always tricky to do that. Marking is not the best thing in the world either, so I don't know if it's really frustrating. It's just one of those things that is not the part of my job that I love, because it's more the interaction between me and the kids that is the most interesting part. There's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of work behind the scenes that students don't see or the normal public don't see. Setting up a lot of things that take a lot of time, especially in a school that is as big as Sanders, and we have 15, 16 science teachers. We don't have the amount of resources, especially like 2 or 3 or 5 of us are doing a lab at the same time. Could get tricky on getting the actual materials to perform it. So there's a lot of planning and co-planning with other teachers so that we kind of plan things in different days so that we don't use the same things and it becomes a little bit hard to be able to do it properly.
What do you wish you have known in your first year of teaching?
Any job, you learn so much as you go. And it also depends a lot on your background. My background was very academic. And so one of the most important skills of teaching is to be able to understand that obviously kids are not at my level. And I need to find ways to teach things in a different way and in a way that suits their pace, not mine.
Yeah.
When you're a first year teacher, you just don't have that relationship, right? You think they should understand it, and it becomes really hard to know why they don't. And so you get frustrated quite easily. You make it personal. So I think that's the other one that is very important, is to understand that it's not personal. Most students don't just dislike you. They sometimes dislike the situation or the fact that they don't understand, or maybe the fact that the subject is not the one they like. And so their behavior is not really towards you, it's towards other things. When you're young, you tend to take a lot of things personal. And I remember going home very frustrated and carrying all the frustrations home, which makes it really hard.
Yeah.
I think that understanding on how kids work and their pace and the patience to find different ways to explain something when they don't understand is what makes my job more enjoyable now than my first year. So here we have a little bit of a demonstration that I use to introduce a particular idea, and it's called equilibrium in the grade 12 chemistry class. I have a flask that I already fill up with some water. It's just distilled water, which means it's pure water. I have an indicator. An indicator is a substance that basically changes color depending on whether a reaction occurs or not. The indicator I have is called methylene blue. So obviously when I shake, I can see that methylene blue tends to make water blue. And I have a scale here, and I'm going to measure a couple of chemicals. Potassium hydroxide. Potassium hydroxide is an ionic compound, but more specifically is a basic compound. It means it has a pH higher than 7. Actually, it's a really strong base. So I'm going to measure a certain amount of it. That's actually perfect. Everything is perfect today, apparently. I got exactly the mass that I needed. And I'm going to close this. I'm going to add it to my flask. The other chemical that I'm going to add is called dextrose, which is basically a sugar. So I'm going to add this sugar. And then you're going to let me know what happens, all right? As we observe this. Remember we talked about chemistry being a patient game?
Yeah.
Okay, so here comes the patience part. Oh, there you go. It's coming.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Let me know when it's completely clear. Where did my blue color go? You ready?
Yeah. Comes back? Who's your most memorable student, and what made them memorable?
When you teach for so long as I have, you see everything. You see the bright kids, the genius kids, the kids that don't need you. There's a lot of them, right? The kids that don't actually, they could have put a different teacher in this class and that person would still do well. I think it's those kids that could be great, but they don't get there yet, and you help them to actually achieve their potential, is the ones that tend to be more memorable. I had a student probably now 5 years ago. She's actually finishing her degree in university now because she changed her career, so it took her 1 year longer than she went to first year and decided to change her career path. So I really remember her because she always came with a smile to the classroom. There was no day, and I taught her grade 11 and grade 12, and I knew her since grade 9 because she was friends with a kid that I was teaching in grade 9. So I saw her throughout my whole career and throughout her 4 years here at Sanders. There was no one single day where she didn't have a good attitude, no matter whether she was tired or not. She was up to everything, so if I would ask her to do something or volunteer, she would be quickly up her feet and do it. She would stay behind when I asked her. She would ask for questions. And right now, actually, she still emails me and comes visit me every single time that she can.
Oh.
So it's pretty memorable.
What's something you wish your students knew?
I think the thing that I want them to know, and usually what they end up knowing towards the end of being with me, is that I care deeply about their success. I care deeply about the fact that they're happy when they come into my classroom, and even if the subject is not their favorite subject, they're still able to go, you know what, I still not gonna do chemistry in my life, but I really enjoy being in that classroom. Yeah. So sometimes the fact that you care a lot about them gets really mixed with the fact that you're assessing them and marking them. And so when the results of the marks don't really match what it seems the relationship is between you and the student, sometimes it tends to damage some relationships. Because obviously nobody likes to fail, nobody likes to not do well on something, or nobody doesn't like to not understand something. Mm-hmm. So I always try really hard for them to understand that I care about them no matter what, and that my door is always open even when they leave my classroom.
An advice for anyone who's considering chemistry or teaching?
Well, I mean, that's a completely different career, right? Chemistry, that involves a lot of curiosity, a lot of the idea that you should always ask questions from yourself so that you are able to come up with answers or be able to design experiments, because most chemists, obviously, they do research. And if you don't have that passion to think about the things you think of, hopefully that makes sense. A lot of people don't actually think through the things that they do. In chemistry, you have to be organized and think what's the next step, and visualize things, and always try to picture how things look like. Because think about it, most of the things that we do in chemistry are things we don't see, are things that we just understand by understanding what does the relationship between a chemical and another, and that interaction, but most of it is visualizing it. And if you don't have the patience to visualize things, to think outside the box, to come up with different ideas, not to get frustrated because something doesn't work, then probably chemistry is not for you. In addition to that, obviously, it is challenging to understand. As you keep going higher in chemistry and you go into really hardcore chemistry courses, there's a lot of really complex ideas to be able to understand. So I would say that if you are not skillful at it, maybe it's not a career for you. You have to be realistic about the fact that you need to be able to do it and understand it so to keep going forward. For teaching, I think that's a little bit easier. It's a little bit more of a human kind of career where you have to be good with people. You have to understand that, you see, I joked earlier in the interview saying that I'm really egocentric and I love the fact that this is a show for me to be able to talk and people watch me. But the reality is that the show is for the kids.
Yeah.
So the reason I teach the way I teach is because I believe it works for them. And as long as you understand that you're here every day to make their life better. See, the reason the student that I said was memorable is memorable because she's success. She's a success story. She found a path, she changed it. She was courageous enough to change her ideas and go into a place where she's happy. And if you are able to teach your students to be strong enough, to be open-minded enough, to change their careers to something that they are actually passionate about, where they're actually gonna make an impact, then I've done my job as a teacher.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And comment down below if you think this job is a good fit for you.
And if it's not, comment down below which one you'd like us to do next time.
See you next time.
Bye!